Hello, everybody, and welcome. My name is Julie Mann, and I show men and women how they can live healthy, happy, sustainable lives. And I'm really excited because today I'm joined by Scott Kirkendall. Hi, Scott.
Hello.
How are you?
I'm doing great, Julie. How are you today?
Really well. All the better for seeing you. So, for those of you that don't yet know who Scott is, he works as a coach. But before we get into talking about exactly what it is you do, Scott, I would love you to tell us your story. So, your story of how you came to be who you are today and how you came to do what you do today.
It's quite the story. So uh, I don't even know really where to begin, Julie. I guess I would start with the fact that I came into this world being told who I was, like most of us are, right? We're uh, told who we're going to be, what we should do. If we come from a line of lawyers, we should go into law and all sorts of stuff. But I came into this world assigned female at birth and not identifying with that. And that started to come out and play itself out at about 4 or 5 years old when I was out playing with my friends and we were playing with our shirts off. And I came home and my parents said, "You can't play with your shirt off. You need to wear a shirt." And I said, "Why?" And they said, "Because girls don't play with their shirts off. They have to play with shirts on." And I said, "But I'm a boy, so that doesn't make any sense." Um, and that, we would, the reaction I got made me kind of turn inside and hide things. We did have interactions and times throughout childhood where I would try to push that and bring that back up. But the reactions I had really had me hiding who I was. And I came out at 18 to family and friends, only family and friends, as a lesbian after having a relationship with a woman for a year, and proceeded to live my life uh, relatively in the closet. I spent 30 years in corporate world, um, male dominated professions, acting as one of the boys, because in my space I really was, but to them they were just, oh, it was just somebody who was one of the boys. But living relatively under the radar, not answering questions, avoiding connections with people that might bring unwanted questions, so I could stay in the closet because I was afraid of what I would lose. And in my late 40s, the whole thing around gender came back around for me, and I had to, as a coach, get really curious about what was going on, and just ended up realizing that I needed to embrace who I am, and that is a man, and choose to transition and take on the name that the first time I ever told someone my name was Scott, I was 6 years old. And so it's a middle name now, but I go by Scott. So, you know, 40 years later, here I am after coming out twice, against society's, expectations of me. I'm finally living as who I am. And so what I do now is support LGBTQ business owners or professionals in stepping out of the closet so that they can reliably, bring in business or climb the ladder authentically in the corporate world.
Well, I mean, it's quite a story, isn't it? I can imagine that, well, I can only imagine that it must be hell. I mean, if any of us try to hide who we are, let alone your gender, who you identify with, I mean, that is hell. So, of all the things you've experienced, Scott, what would you say has been the most challenging thing that you've had to overcome?
Julie, honestly, I'd say it's the challenge of tenuous or lost connections with family around it, who I know they love and support me. I know they have fears about what types of things I'll face in my life. I know that they have to do the grief process between who they thought I was and who I really am. And I trying very hard to, you know, remain in that space where I can love them where they're at. When actually that's what I'm wanting, right? I'm asking them to love me for who I am and where I am. And I can't do that unless I do the same for them. and they're not all in the same place and supportive of me. And it's hard because I love them and I want them to be a part of my life.
Of course, I guess it's fear and ignorance, isn't it? So, yeah, I imagine that there will be some people watching, Scott, that really don't know anything, or maybe they know a little bit about trans and, gender non-conforming people. Some people may never have heard of that. So, can you explain a little bit about it?
Certainly. There, the easiest way to kind of separate that, there's sexual orientation and gender identity and gender expression, and they're all three different. Sexual orientation is who do I go to bed with? Gender identity is who do I go to bed as? And gender expression is just how do I express my masculinity and femininity in the world through clothing and eyewear and jewelry and makeup. They're different things, and they are not mutually exclusive. So you can find a trans woman who was assigned male at birth, who is actually a woman, who is sexually attracted to women. So she would be a trans woman who's a lesbian. Those things are not mutually exclusive, and they're not the same. Um, and this whole world is driven by the way we identify everything is by gender. We talk about, boats as females and give them female names, and we assign inanimate objects gender to try to, I don't know, I guess organize and sort things. When we do everything with humans in categorizing male and female and assigning roles, and they really don't have a place to be gendered, because people just are who they are. They like what they like and they enjoy doing what they do. Their skills are not related to a gender.
Yeah. I mean, acceptance obviously is important to all of us, isn't it? It doesn't matter, who you are or what your sexual orientation is. It really doesn't matter. We're all looking to be accepted for who we are. If someone watching, Scott, they just can't get their head around accepting trans and gender non-conforming people, what would you say to them?
Well, it's an interesting thing. I would always, at this point in time, it's very easy to say, why don't you just go Google it? that we've turned that into a verb. Go to the Google, do some searching. But the interesting thing is, some people will say, why is this trans thing such a big deal? Why is this all coming around now? This has been around since transgender people have been around since the beginning of time. And in many cultures, um, transgender people are actually celebrated. Two-spirit people, third gender people, actually celebrated. And part of that is because of the experience that bridges multiple experiences, brings a lot of people have thought of us as shamans and more wisdom people. And it's really more in, I don't know if it's just in Christianity, or I don't think it's just Christianity, but some of the more modern wisdom traditions that actually uh, speak against it. And I think it really only comes from fear, because we have been here all along. But in the 1920s, there was a sexual health institute in Germany that was studying transgender people. So it's not a new phenomenon. It's the new phenomenon is that many of us are becoming bold enough and empowered enough to speak out about it and to be open about it. It used to be someone would decide that they were going to transition. They would leave the society that they had, their loved ones and their family and friends, drop out of that, go transition and pop up somewhere else as someone else, and really cut themselves off from everyone in their life. I mean, imagine how desperately you have to want to be yourself in order to cut yourself off from everyone that you know. That's a very, very powerful statement about how challenging and difficult this is for us.
Absolutely. And the whole process of transitioning and having surgery, it's a massive deal, isn't it? And
It
you
can.
know, obviously it doesn't always work out. There are some people who transition, they regret their decision, and then they want to transition back. Do you ever work with people who have experienced that?
I don't. And the number of people that really is pretty small. It's a long journey to transition. And I just for a little bit of clarity, not everyone who identifies as transgender, um, it's a spectrum of people, and not everyone wants medical intervention. So some people simply want a name change. Some people do want some medical intervention. Some people don't want to change anything. They just want to express the fact that they don't identify either how they were told they should identify, or a non-binary and gender non-conforming people don't identify as one or the other. Like they're just, and by and large, Julie, that's really how I feel. I'm just Scott. I don't understand why there's a gender, why I have to be one thing or another. I'm just Scott. There's not another one of me. Probably good for all of you. but gender is really this abstract thing that we try to do to put each other in some sort of a way that we can understand. And we really, it'd be nice if we could just get better at not understanding and just
Yeah,
experiencing one another.
absolutely, I agree. And I'm very glad that you clarified that for us, Scott. So tell us, how do you actually help the clients that you work with?
I work with people who are, by and large, either not out of the closet at all or only a little bit in some areas, and they recognize that that is taking a toll on their business or their life. That it's their energy level is waning, and they want to do something about it. They really just want the freedom to just be able to step into the world as themselves and be seen, right? We really do want to just belong in the world that we're in, and we can't do that if we're not seen for who we truly are. So I help them. We start out by pinpointing how they show up currently in life um, now, and then we also work on recognizing and defining their values so that they can use those as a North Star, if you will, when they're making decisions going forward on how they're going to make a decision. They make sure that it's aligned with their values. And we personalize the process and help them step into decide where is going to be the most impact for them to be authentic and open. And I really just coach them and give them the support they need to make those choices and step out courageously as who they are.
What an extraordinary thing, an extraordinary journey to help people with that kind of
Yes.
metamorphosis. That's, yeah, I mean,
It
that's joyful, I imagine.
it is joyful, and it's wonderful to experience through others the same thing I experienced with myself. I talk about often, we die uh, 1,000 deaths by thought, on
Oh,
how we think, death by 1,000 thoughts on how we think something's going to play out and what we're going to lose and how it's going to go and how awful it's going to be. And I work with myself and my clients on, if you're going to project the future, project something good. Like, if you're going to turn the movie projector on, why does it have to be a scary film? Why can't it be a positive film that you're about to step into? But I mean, we really do die death by 1,000 thoughts before we ever even take a step. And to be able to um, encourage and coach and cheerlead someone to step in and have them move through something they thought was going to be devastating or terrifying, and they get to the other side and it was none of that, and they're empowered, it's just wonderful. I love it.
incredible. And I absolutely love that statement about dying 1,000 deaths by thought. Absolutely. What do you think that as a society we can do to really support people who are marginalized?
I we spend a lot of time in comparing ourselves to one another, because of our own insecurities. So we compare to others, and we are either determining that I'm better than this person or I'm less than this person. And we're operating from this place of fear, in this place of comparison. And I really think if we could stop that comparison, um, we'd better connect not only with those that we have been judging, but we'd also connect better with ourselves if we'd stop that comparison and start just, you know, get to know Julie. If I just get to know you and experience you without trying to determine whether or not you are who you should be, or making any kinds of judgments on that, and just let you share with me your joys and excitement, that allows me to do the same. We get belonging and deep connection from that.
Yeah, and I think sometimes because I think as human beings, we do judge, however non-judgmental we want to be. And that's probably a safety thing. When we meet someone, we're sizing it up, sizing them up. Are we safe? Can we trust this person? But maybe it's after that when you kind of, that willingness to go beyond those initial thoughts. Yeah.
Indeed.
Of all the things you've ever done, what are you most proud of?
Oh my gosh. Really, honestly, I think it is every day that I openly step out as Scott and say to the world, this is who I am.
That's wonderful. I mean, we could all want to say that, couldn't we, really?
We could. We
Yeah,
could.
absolutely. What do you do when you're not working?
Oh my gosh. I spend a lot of time with my wife. We do love to watch some television and some movies. We have a sickness for Harry Potter that we probably watch the entire series of movies once a month. We have 3 cats and 3 dogs, and I do spend some time doing agility training with the dogs. So that's fun. And I absolutely love to read. So I'm constantly reading.
What are you reading right now?
I'm reading coaching books, but I'm also reading a series on shifters and the shifter world, with werewolves and werebears and werecats.
Ooh,
Yes, it's
interesting.
a supernatural world.
Yeah. One final question. When you're no longer on this planet, Scott, how would you like to be remembered?
Oh, I want to be remembered by people having a true sense that when they were with me, they were seen for who they were.
Wonderful. It's been such a joy talking to you, Scott.
Thank you. It's been a joy talking to you too. I appreciate you having me here.
So all there is for me to say is take a look at Scott's links, which are below this video. And Scott Kirkendall, thank you so very much.
Thanks, Julie.